Hi everybody, Fred Wagner here. Welcome to 2018. Just had New Year's the other day, and it's Tuesday. Well, I'm here with Papa's Painting Tips, and I just wanted to do a little video this time. I've been working on a lot of videos on fur and feathers and such. And I'm working on a tiger painting right now, and I just thought I'd give a little better detailed informational painting on creating highly detailed fur. I think it'll help people because it works overall in creating most fur. This one's obviously a tiger, so we're going to be working with the markings on the tiger. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the length of fur and how to define the fur. It's one thing to just, paint the color on and then make your strokes with your scratch tools and erasing tools. It's another thing to really get in there and make and really emphasize the depth in the fur and detail it to get it really photorealistic. You don't always have to paint this way. I prefer to paint that way. I enjoy it. It's challenging to me to really create that really detailed look. The other thing I'm working on right now is I have over here my easel set up with a clayboard. It's a homemade clayboard that I've been using lately. The last really detailed fur work I did was on illustration board. This time I'm working on the homemade clayboard. In the painting Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, yes, that was homemade clayboard, but since that painting, I now have a different clay that I'm using from my wife gave me a gift of this better clay. It's finer ground. It's kaolin clay, but it's the fine white powder, where the other one was kaolin clay. I keep saying that wrong. Kaolin clay, which is the same clay. It's just not as fine a grind on the clay. Okay, it's a difference of what would be a sandy, gritty consistency, and this is more like a confectionery sugar consistency. Really fine, really powdery. And what it has done is it helps create a smoother surface than the other clay that I was working on. You still have the erasing ability, but it definitely goes on a lot smoother. There's less sanding you have to do in between coats, and it makes it really nice to get it smooth. The one thing I have noticed with it is if you have your mixture a little too thick, you can get brush strokes from painting it on your board. So you want to make sure you sand that down. I've got a few that are popping up that I've noticed, so the next time I make this clay mixture, I want to take and thin it even a little bit more. Also, the amount of glue, PVA glue that you're putting in, because normal clayboard is made with the kaolin clay, with rabbit skin glue, and with titanium dioxide white or any other color pigment you want, dry pigment, and then you mix it all together with water and make a smooth, runny paint, almost like little thicker than a acrylic high flow acrylic paint. You want it a little bit thinner than that. Okay, almost the consistency of like I would say a cream that you put in your coffee would be the easiest thing to describe it as. You want it around that consistency. The other thing I want to show you is I got a few more new scratch tools, and stuff for creating textures in my paintings. Got these for Christmas. My daughter was wonderful enough to gift them to me, and I'm just going to pull them out here and show you. I got a whole set of scratchboard tools, which are really cool. There's for working on scratchboard, but I found I can use them for my airbrush work on the clayboard. Now, before you've seen this one, this is the Euro tool, made in Germany. It's the fiberglass scratch pen. This one's the fine detail pen. Now I have, let's make sure I pull out the right one, with the scratch board, and I also ordered one, so now I got two of them, the larger scratch brush. And you twist the bottom end, make sure I go the right way, there we go. And it's a lot thicker fiberglass, so you could get broader fur patterns out of this and scratching areas. You can also scratch to the edge. Another thing you could possibly do if you wanted was sand it down on paper and get a finer point. I don't find that necessary to do that, but I've got had replacement nibs for this already that I've never been able to use because I didn't have this. Well, at the same time, not realizing this was the same thing as this, my daughter also bought me the pen. So now I've got two of them. So just one in yellow, one in red. Same thing. And what you do here, let me put this down, okay? You take off the tip, okay? Unscrew the tip and screw that up all the way. There we go. And there's your little nib, and it goes in a little plastic holder in here that it just presses down into. You pull that out, you put your replacement nib in there, screw it back down, and it's very similar. The other one is just a push. This one is a push button on the end that this slides in and out, and it grips it on the end. This one screws in and out. So that's the main difference in how the body works. And this one's kind of catching up. I don't know why. Alright, I'm going to put this back in here. Make sure I get all my fibers in there so I don't... Okay, it was all the way down to the end. That's why it wasn't going down any further. Okay. Good things to have. Alright, I'm going to show you a couple more that I got. This all came with the scratch brush set. Okay, for doing scratchboard. This is a wire tip brush, and these wires are very stiff. I don't know if you've ever seen the wire tool that you can put on your drill, and it's got all the wires sticking all over, and it's for taking rust off of a car. And it's round, it's quite big. But this is the same type of steel on the end. Very stiff bristles. This can scratch down into that board really nicely and get some nice bright white marks back into the board from your color. On a scratch board, you'll be scratching off the India ink. The next tool that came with it is this. It looks like an X-Acto tool, and it's got 4 little tiny knife, pointy pin type blades welded on the end of that. And this is really nice for making some nice etched lines. You can use it for cross hatching and that on your scratch board, but on this you can use it for nice sharp fine fur work. Then the other thing that came with the scratch board is this tool. It's a little tool. It has a, I don't know if you've ever used a quill pen before, but it's a similar type of situation. It's like a quill pen. It's got these little tips. This one is the fine point quill tip. Alright, and it's a very sharp point. Nice for really fine fur detail work. Alright, and also what comes with it, excuse my back here, let's see, where can I find it? Where did I put it? It was right in here. Oh dear. I know I put it in here. I'm not finding it at the moment in my little cabinet. Maybe I put it up in here. Wow. Well, looks like I messed myself up a little bit. Opening and closing the doors, I seem to have misplaced the blade tip. There's a second blade. Oh, here it is, here it is. I found it. See, trying to make sure I don't lose it. I lose it. Okay, this is another tip that goes into that scratch brush, and try to get it so you can see it. See, it's like a curved blade. Okay, where this one's pointy. This one has a point, but it's got a curved blade, almost like a knife or a scalpel, the curved scalpel, and it goes in the tip of this also. So you got two different blades that come with that. All right. Also in the pack came a little piece of, oops, pick that up, steel wool. This is a fine, probably triple aught steel wool for scrubbing into the board. Really good tools. I love this set. It was really nice that my daughter got it for me. I saw it on there. I picked it out. I put it on my Amazon wish list. And, you know, they all go to, we want to get you exactly what you need or want. We don't want you to be disappointed. So I put that on my list, and wonderful gift. I love it. I love it. I've used it all so far, every single piece. On top of that, I had bought this before, and I did mention it. This is also a scratch brush tool, and it's got steel, a steel bristle end instead of the fiberglass. This one holds up a little more. It's a little softer. You can extend it for soft fur or retract it. Now, if you're going to order these Eurotool scratch brushes on Amazon or wherever, they are not made specifically for artwork. You will find them under jewelry, for making home jewelry, or fine detail work for sanding and such. So it's just under their tools section. It's not particularly in the fine art section, but they work wonderful for using with your scratch board. So I've got all that now for working on these clay boards. Alright, and I'm still using my hard and soft erasers. One thing, an advantage in using this clay board with this powder mix is the clay board being smoother, okay, and absorbent. You can do a lot more soft eraser work, where with synthetic paper you're kind of stuck with the hard aggressive eraser, because the soft eraser will peel the paint right back down to the white surface. And also with I've noticed with using the Createx illustration, you got to let that set up a little bit for the aggressive eraser to work almost like a soft eraser, where the E'tac EFX on this clay board, you can paint it on, give it a couple seconds, and then just go in there with your soft eraser, which is, you know, just your Faber-Castell soft rubber eraser. Looks like a pencil eraser on the end of your pencil, and sharpen it down. It works really nice. Alright, I just wanted to give you a little background on what changed for 2018, and I will be making a demonstration on how to make the clay board. At this time, I'm still in the process of understanding how far to mix it and how far to go with the clay mixture, how much glue and everything, get the ratios correct. So we're going to work on that before I make that video. Once I'm confident in everything I'm doing, then I'll do that. So I will be right back. Alright, this is what we got so far. I've already started the painting, and I'm going to go over a little more of this, more detail. I think I'm going to work over here and show you how to do this fur. Then I'll come back in here and start defining that fur to get it more detailed and show you how I'm working on this, because this is a little more in depth than the other fur that I've been working on in the bobcat video and also the leopard. This is very similar to the leopard, so I just figured I would give you a better understanding of what I'm doing, a little close-up look at the painting itself. So I'm going to move the camera now and get set up to paint, and right now I'm working with my custom Micron SB and my E'tac EFX paint. And again, I'll be diluting it with some distilled water and some transparent base into it. So let's get started on this. And like I said, it's not going to be a long video. It's going to be pretty short. I am setting up right now, and one of the things I've been doing lately. So I got a little shot glass here, you know, little shot glass. And rather than try to pour out of this bottle, because it has a tendency to all of a sudden spit out more water than I want it to. So what I've been doing lately is putting some distilled water in this. And then this is for when I'm mixing paints in my cup. Then I'll take an eyedropper. Alright, this one's dirty. This one's got black from black paint. I gotta clean that out better. But take an eyedropper, suck up a little water, and do my drops like that, rather than try to pour it in and then end up with too much water and wreck my mix. Alright, I got my compressor all set and ready to roll. Uh-oh. I can't reach. I had to add some water to my compressor today. Or, did I say just water? I had to add some oil to my compressor today, because I got the Iwata Shark compressor, and it's an oil silent compressor. It's not very silent, really. But I got that going. I got my custom Micron SB here. Oh, one other thing before I do get started, and I'll move it in. I had a little accident with my needle tip the other week, and I had made mention of it on Facebook and that. And since I've been doing these paintings and offering as my ministry unto the Lord, serving Him with my artwork, I don't charge for this, and but I had made mention that I had damaged the needle and straightened out best I could. Well, I had a good friend of mine that I know through the forums. His name's Joshua. He blessed me with a Christmas gift. I told him no, but he sent me a sharpener. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Joshua. Again, thank you. A sharpener and 2 pads. And I straightened out my needle, and I buffed it with their buffing pads. I don't have any polishing compound yet, so I just used the buff pads. But I pulled out the sharpener. I ran the needle in this, and then I even did the cone part of it. Works really nice, and I'm watching the tip of the needle to see how much tip dry I get, because after buffing I don't think it's as smooth as I really want it, but it might not be any different from the factory smoothness that comes on a factory needle. So I know there's ways to polish it and get it even sharper. So, but I did run it through those, and then the 3000 grit buffing pad that they got, and the needle seems to be working really well. I've got really sharp lines coming out of it. Now last week I was working with some blacks and stuff, so it was drying on the tip quite a bit. When you use the opaque black and excuse me, opaque white, it can get it can dry on there pretty quick. But I only had to do the Q-tip trick a couple times. It flowed pretty nicely. Most of the time I use instead of black, I use my Payne's Gray, because you can build up levels on that Payne's Gray pretty good. Okay, get my paint out here. I'm going to use some more Payne's Gray. I'm going to show you how yeah. Okay, I've got a marking over here that I can work on, and we can do that one. Excuse me. I got a dry tickle in my throat again. Alright, I'm going to put 3 drops of water. Now, I don't want this real transparent, so I'm only going to do 1 drop of the transparent base, because I don't need it that transparent, but I do find with the transparent base it flows a little bit better. Something about a little less pigment in that paint. I don't know. Could be. I shook up my Payne's Gray here, and I'm going to put 4 drops of the Payne's Gray. So that was 3 water, 1 transparent base, and 4 drops of paint. Because I want to keep, you know, I don't want it real thin, but then again I want, so I can have coverage. If I wanted to get really fine detailed lines, I would probably do 1-to-1 in here for the paint and water. So get my little stirring sticks out. I haven't gotten those yet. What I'm using for the stirring sticks is coffee stirrers. Works really well for stirring down in here. Now, being this is a little thicker mix, let's see, what's my compressor set at here? I got my compressor right at 30. Let's drop it down to 25 for my, and then I can regulate it with my Mac valve down here, the little Iwata Mac valve. That's an add-on to this brush. Alright. I'm going to give this a little spray to get the paint started. Oops. Let's try opening up that. When I do spray into my receptacle, here, this little spray receptacle for cleaning the brush and such, I like to put the crown, I try to remember to put the crown cap back on, because I have poked the needle into the rubber, and I'm always worried I'm bending the needle tip. So, boy, oh boy. I don't know why well, I do know why. I went out and shoveled the driveway this morning, and it's bitter cold outside. That's another thing. I don't know how this is going to spray with it as cold as it is, and the weather being the way it is right now. So I put my little crown cap on the edge of the easel. I've got my reference over here to the left, and I'm going to start spraying in this marking. I can be pretty loose. It's a large marking, so I'm going to be actually quite loose, doing very soft dagger strokes at the moment, because we're going to go back in, and I don't care if I overlap a little bit, that's fine. I'm keeping my air on constantly, and I'm just going back and forth. And if you notice, I've already somewhat set up gradation in values of the paint. I'm going to pull this marking down into here. Now I've got my orange lines that I did when I was doing my drawing for this. I used the trace app to trace it out. Now this marking comes all the way down into here, and I gotta watch because I've got so many little markings. Okay, this marking goes down kind of to a point right there. And then back up here, we got another marking that's kind of coming off. There's a couple little spots in between this, so I'm going to put a little gray in here. And I'm going to fill this in. Like I said, you can be quite loose at this right now. And pull some gray down. Gray, black, you know, we're going to build it till it's almost black into the fur, but not a lot. You don't want a lot, because over here it's a lighter tan. So if you run this black out here too much, it's going to be kind of messy looking. All right. Okay, this is going to be annoying for you guys. That cold air really did a number on my lungs this morning. Shoveling. Alright, I got some good marks in here. We got a little bit more right here. Now on the top edges, right, your fur direction is following this pattern. It comes up the bridge of the nose from the eyes, goes around and begins to run out here and follow this pattern, circular pattern around, which I've talked about before. So on this side of the markings, you're going to have this whiter and tan fur flowing over the black markings, his markings. And each marking on tigers or other animals is all individual to the animal, so it's never the same on each. Then this side, you're going to be pulling your dark dagger strokes over the lighter fur. So we can pull a few out into there. Don't make them all even, and
I'm reminding you, Fred called the vet about
I gotta call the vet. That's right. I will be taking a break shortly. I gotta call the vet about my doggy. Aye.
I'm reminding you, Fred called
Alexa, stop.
His medicine.
Aye. There's that. My wife set a reminder for me. And you know what? It's a good thing she did, because I did forget. Now, I don't know how that dishwasher has run 2 hours already. Although I started it when she left. Alright. And you see, I pulled some soft dagger strokes, not a lot. And now I'm going to mist over this. See where you've made a couple lines here with the darker strokes, and then you mist over it. It darkens that and the other value that you painted on that. So what I do from here, and right now, yeah, that needle is pretty clean for having sprayed for that much. Now this is what we do on here. For this, I am going to use a couple tools. Alright. And again, with the clayboard, if I'm going to rest my hand on it, I really want to use a glove so that the oils on my hand don't get on there. And I'm pulling my strokes from this white area over onto the black markings. And I'm trying to make it somewhat sporadic. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. I wish you could. Let me see if I can. Let's see. I'm hoping this stays in focus. I'm adjusting the whoa. So you can see a little bit better of what I'm doing right here. Yeah, it seems to be okay. And I'm taking, and I'm using the edge of this brush, and I'm pulling some short hairs, some long hairs, following the direction of this fur. Like I said, it's going this way and then it starts to curve down. So, and if you press a little, you separate those fibers, all right, and you can get multiple hairs. And I'm going to show you the other brushes for a second. It won't hurt. Alright, I got some long hairs there, and the same up here. See how this clayboard really does amazing for pulling and scratching, and also for soft erasing. Okay, now you've created a depth in that fur. It's no longer just flat. Now you've got this looking like it's above, coming above. Over here, I don't know if you can see it, but my brush strokes, and this is where I gotta adjust my paint, my clay mix. Right, over here, we're gonna pull some of these out of this. I misted over these areas a little bit with gray and a little bit with some tan already to give me a base to work off of. So I got this fur. Let me adjust my light a little better. Okay. Because my hand's casting a shadow. It's getting hard to see. And up here, this part, the fur's turning up. So I'm doing short and long strokes. Keeping the same direction, but, you know, varying it just a little, one this way, one that way. You know, kind of making it scraggly. So, the next one, I'll show you this, get it in the camera, this little scratch brush tool. All right, this one, real fine hairs. All right. Now, I don't know if you can see that. You can really get some excellent detail with this little one. It just, you're making each individual hair. Alright, that's really cool. I really like this tip on this brush, or scratch tool. Right, I'm going to pull some down into here, and down there. And even in here, we got a couple little hairs. And this will take it right down, because that's a chiseled edge. There's, if you get one, you can see where they ground that edge right down. And it's really close to a scalpel edge. But it works really nice. Lasts longer, the tip of that lasts longer than an X-Acto blade lasts, which is amazing to me. And then this other one, like I said, this one, it's got that 4 little pins. And you can, I don't have to do this, I'm just, so you could get 4 little lines going and do some really fine hair work. I wish I could do this better for you. But really getting into that. And do a couple up here just to add, you know, sometimes you'll have like groups of hairs all going in the same direction. So, okay, then I'm just showing you all different ones to do this. I do the steel one and pull these. This one tends to be a little bit softer, alright, and just pulling a few longer ones through here and also creating, there we go. You gotta press a little harder because this one's soft. And this is just to create keep your direction the same. Alright. You can use this one to soften the other ones you pulled on it, but also I'm adding multiple layers inside that marking that I'm going to go back in and reinforce. Alright. Now, this side is the black, but what we can do is, let's see, what do we want to do this with? Alright, I'm going to use my hard eraser. I'm going to chisel this point, make an edge, a nice little edge. I'm going to chisel it to make it a line. I could also use a large eraser. I don't have to use this pencil one. Alright, and clean the wood down on the edge so I get mostly eraser. Alright. I got a chisel point on here. Now I'm going to take the chisel point on this side and see if I can pull, just erase back into these. Now it's not erasing as, like I said, this aggressive eraser is a little bit harder to erase into it. So we can pull these lines into this black. To help define this outer edge. I'm hoping you understand what I'm talking about. That way it gives that pointer, because I went soft, like I said, on that. And when I go back in, also you'll notice these have to be cleaned off every once in a while because the paint holds to it. Now I'm going to get my soft eraser here. Just clean that up a little bit. The soft eraser just does almost a better job than the hard eraser on this clay. And you can get some nice subtle values. Okay, that's looking nice. Getting all these marks in here. Up here is real sporadic. The hair is getting long. It's coming into the ear area. So what we'll do up there is we will take, let's see, we'll take this one again and just use it almost like a line. Brush off some of that paint that's coming off. Alright. Same in here. Just a few of these coming in because you don't want it looking the same as this edge. You want the black to be emphasized. Okay. That's why we're going to go back over that when we missed over this. Alright, that's good. Well, actually, no. I'm lying to you. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do this. Okay. Make sure you leave some of these pointy because you don't want it to get confused because the direction infers that way. So, now we're going to go back to this, to the paint. Alright, make sure it hasn't dried up, so give it a spray on a surface, another surface. Now we can mist over this Alright. And I have noticed that sometimes doing a darker layer works out better for scratching into. You just don't want to flood the surface. Okay. Now we're going to pull, we're going to get tight up on this. Yeah, I think I need this paint a little thicker today. I mean, you can build it and build it and build it. It's just how long you want to take to build a layer. It's not quite opaque enough. Then we can take and pull some dagger strokes over here. All right. And I'm not covering all the black marking. Right. Pay attention to your reference. Some of these get pulled further back in, some not so much. Right. This is how you work the markings on a tiger. Okay, let's do the same thing here. Let's add a little paint to this. Let's make it a little bit, not more opaque. I don't want to make it opaque. I just want the paint a little bit stronger, not as transparent. I mean, you could add one drop of black and make it an opaque, but then what you end up having to deal with is the paint dries quicker on the needle tip, and you get a little more grainy look to it on the board. So there's certain instances you're going to use that method called buffing the paint. But this, let's spray this through to get the fresh color in there. Alright. Now, I don't know if you noticed, this is where I was spraying before with the paint mixed down. Let's get it up in the view. See right here how it's softer. Well, this is the newer one, and I can get much more defined dagger strokes on there. So now I'm going to pull just like I did with the eraser. On the opposite side, I'm going to pull these dagger strokes sporadically on the other side of the marking out into, not too far, you don't want to overdo it, then your marking will get too large. I mean, you don't have to be real quick at it, you can take your time. Make sure it's coming out the way it is in your reference, or however you like it and want it. Okay, up here, I've actually got this pulled in too far. This marking comes out quite a bit larger on top. Right, in here, these are just little spots in between the two sets of marks. Okay, now I'm pulling down into the other fur. Always starting somewhere in the middle between the two edges of fur. And then we can sharpen that up, pulling more strokes in. Okay, we're going to darken this up a little more. And I'm leaving some grayer areas in between to create levels of fur. And when I go back in and really define everything later with a darker, more opaque color, I will do just small little areas to define that fur. Alright, this has to be covered. I hope you're seeing this. I tried to get the camera. Okay. Now we can mist a little. Over here it's a darker spot coming out of here. Off of this eyebrow. This is above, so it's shadowing down here. And in here it's really shadowed, so we can go a lot heavier there. And this marking is coming up. I'm doing real tiny short dagger strokes in here, and then I'll go over it. Barely spraying paint out of there. This is where my hand starts cramping up. I know others have talked about their hands cramp up when they're painting. I find when I put my fingertip up on top of the trigger, I get more cramped. So if I lay it over more, I don't get as many cramps in my fingers. And just by pushing my fingertip the other way. Okay. Now we will come back in here, and now we're going to start defining that edge a lot more. I put my crown cap back on. I'm deciding which tool I want to do this with. Let's start out with this scratch board tool. Okay. And I'm going to pull some of these. Like I said, I don't want it's hard on this, the angle where I'm working at, because I want to give you guys a good view of it, and it's not. Okay, we can also come back here and run some of these lines, because that's gonna we're gonna be spraying color on that later. You're really working some fine. You're technically scratching right back into the clay here. Now my reference picture is not as detailed, because obviously I've got it blown up. So I'm kind of improvising in here to actually make it a little more photorealistic than the photo. I don't know if that makes sense. Alright, now I'm going to take this one and go over some of these. Not everything is the same sharpness and intensity. Alright. If you do that, if you have everything the same sharpness, is going to look on the same plane, and your painting's going to look flat. So you want some of it to be a little out of focus, some of it to be nice and hard edges, depending where it is in your painting. Alright. Alright. And now we're going to come back in here. We're just going to drag some of these into this where we worked before. You want to make sure, don't do them all, because then it'll look the same as this side, and you don't want that. You're just cleaning this edge up a little bit more. And I'm going to use my soft eraser just to really kind of clean all of that up. come in with just paint. Okay. I'm just softening some spots and re-emphasizing others. Yeah, see who texted. I got a feeling that's my wife texting me. Okay. Let's get a few more inside and marking just to give it more depth, and then we're going to go again and we're going to spray over it a little more just to create more depth in that, because in here this is the central focus of the painting. Down here is going to get a little less. And let me check my text and see what this. Okay. It's just telling me it was twice. Okay. And I also had another message. I don't know what it was, but okay. Now, let's take one of these larger ones and drag it across softly. I'm not using a lot of pressure. Okay. Just to get a little more. This seems to be working a little bit better than that than the eraser. Okay. And we can drag some into here and then we'll re-emphasize. I can do a couple really sharp ones and then repaint those back in. And I'm always checking my reference so that I'm close to what that's doing. I can make it my own. I can paint it whatever way I see fit. But I want to keep it somewhat close. I'm going to dust this over again. But this time I'm going to go a lot tighter and go leaving some of these markings, or the lighter gray fur. And I'm just gonna, this comes up further. I've got this a little bit off. I don't think I drew the marking quite accurately. Because we got these coming up. We got two little spots here. And this one kind of comes down. I hope my head shouldn't be in your way. I got this. Right, these come out a little further, and that's why we worked back into it. Trying not to turn my wrist too much. That's one mistake a lot of people do when they're painting. Especially fur. They're doing this with their wrist. You don't want to do that. You want to move your whole arm and shoulder and keep your hand steady and straight. It'll give you straighter lines. A lot of people will complain that their strokes always look wiggly. And that's because they're turning their wrist. They're not using their shoulder and upper body. If I were standing, I'd be even more using my shoulders into the painting of these dagger strokes. So, also concentrating on not whacking this needle into the tip, or the needle into the board. Alright, now we're gonna again work down some of these strokes into these areas of fur. Okay. And then we can also darken some of this. Marking is not that dark black, so you don't need it black. In here, these can be misted over a little more. And being this is the transparent Payne's Gray, you've got a lot of ability to adjust these values. Now in here, you want to pull just very lightly in between some of these white lines, like we did the fur on the chin of the leopard. Same basic idea. Oh, God has created such wonderful, marvelous animals for us to attend to and take care of on this earth. Beautiful, majestic animals that could eat you in a heartbeat. You probably wouldn't mind. You say, oh, look, a Fred snack. Woohoo! Get a lot of flavorful fat off that Fred snack. That part of creation didn't exist in the beginning. We were meant to coexist with the animals, and we were to take care of them. There was to be no killing and eating of animals, and the animals wouldn't attack man. But because of sin, all that changed. All that death entered into the world. Up in here, I'm going to knock those back just a little. Okay. I'm going to mist this just a little more. I don't want to cover it. I just want to mist it. Same with that. Alright. I'm going to use this, not this one, and pay attention to what you pick up, by the way. Right. I'm going to go back with this one. I got to see where I'm at. Ooh, there. I'm going to go back with this scratch brush, and I'm just going to redefine just a couple. I want to leave some grayed out and back, and I want some a lot sharper. Not all of them though. Okay, this part is a little brighter, so I'm going to start out over scratching it, really. And then in here, I got to pull some of these into this. Because that one, I don't want to forget about that one because we're working this area. So, same above. Just a few areas. We can touch them up a little bit when we go back in. This has got to pull down. Now in here I said about those two little spots. Okay. we're going to overlap that again. Let's see, pull them out this way. And same down here. I'm going to pull from the marking out. Okay. Same up here. Pull out from these markings. Now with these glass brushes, this all breaks off and it gets down on the bottom edge of your easel and such. And you want to be careful when you wipe them up. Wipe them up with a damp cloth, or I've got a little Black & Decker mini vac here that I like to vacuum them up. Right, we're going to redefine some of these up here. Alright, now in here, I've already dusted some, so I'm going to go back in here. This was sprayed a couple days ago, but on this clayboard I can, especially with the scratch brushes, I can come back and still scratch into that clay. And I'm pressing fairly hard to scratch into there. This fur up here is going a little more out of focus, so I don't have to have such sharp defined edges on it. I'm going to pull a couple of these into here. I don't like how that looks right there. Alright, and then this is what I'm talking about, redefining. I'm just using one little blade off of that. I could do that with the other brush too. As we're coming down in by this eye again, we're getting more defined. So I can be a little sharper and harder on that. Right? Okay. I'm going to go back to my airbrush. Make sure it's still spraying. And I'm going to go back over here again. We're not spraying that well at the moment, so there's obviously a little tip dry going on that. Nothing terrible yet, so I'm going to take my little Q-tip, moistened with water, and I'm going to put it on the needle tip and give it a twist, just to clean that off. And now we got much finer lines. And I'm not misting this time. I'm just going in and making a few darker areas by building the layer. And down here, it's a little darker right under this patch of fur. And then down here again, we got a little darker under here. And then here, we gotta clean this up a little bit. Pay attention to what I'm doing on this. This is a marking. This is just some line. Okay, this is a marking going up into there. Okay. Take your time. Every time I say take your time, I for some reason got the song "Take Your Time, Do It Right." It's like, okay, why do I got that song in my head? Okay. Let's clean this and sharpen this up a little bit under here. Just layering that, getting it all nice and dark. We can come back into here where we've been making marks. Now this one's a little harder to see because I have, this part I did a little bit more opaque black into that already. And then up here, I'm going to start darkening this a little more. The top of it is softer up here, so I'm not getting as dark in that area. And I want a little bit in here. Right. And then I'm going to use my scratch brush once again, and probably use this one this time. Just over in this, just to pull some hairs over what I just did. Okay, and trying to pay attention to all these little markings. See, I'm now, I think what I'm going to do I don't want to move that yet. Let's drag some. I've got the glove off only because I was just doing something in the kitchen and I'm just pulling a few hairs up further into this that I'm gonna mist over again. And let's make a couple on the bottom a little sharper and stronger. And we're gonna we can knock this back. I see a little area because this is and then just going to go a little bit in where the fur is wrapping. And we've got a little bit of shadowing down here. Same there. And I'm going to pull this up a little sharper. Now that I've got more in, I can and same on this edge where we've done all this. Clean this up a little bit. because we don't want it, like I said, I want it to look like this fur's pulling over that. The way I have it at the moment, it's going to appear the opposite of that. You can also achieve some of that by misting over. Okay. And up here, we're going to give a little bit stronger. Ooh. Boy, oh boy. Obviously that's a block number. Let me grab that phone so I got it next to me. Okay. I'm also working on the left side of this painting because I'm right-handed. So it's easier for me to work this direction around and down, because if I painted all this down below and then go above it, I chance scratching below and messing something up. So I don't want to. I want to be careful on that. So that's the only reason I'm working. Okay. Now I'm going to put in, this is where we start to detail into the fur. I'm picking out little spots where I can shadow a little bit of this gray in, and I also do this with the browns. The darkest spots I can put in. Just real tiny, tiny marks. Paying attention to the length of your strokes. Trying to match what you've got on for reference. This is skipping a little bit, I've noticed. I'm thinking I'm just testing it out on my little piece of paper to make sure I don't have a problem with my tip of my needle. Because sometimes that's just a dirty needle tip, so you need to clean it. It could be a hook on the end of the needle from bumping it, and it's drying out on the tip. Your paint collects on it and then skips and jumps off of the tip of the airbrush. Okay. And you know what? Here we go. This is another reason. That's like that. This has got to come up further out here. Whoa, I just blew it out. That means I got some paint and water separation going on. The water sprayed out and wet the surface. Okay, I got these little marks up here. Now up in here, above this little mark, that's part of the ear that's coming, the fur by the ear. And that's real sporadic all over the place. So, and it's soft too. So I'm just going to do a lot of all over the place. Not any particular direction in here. Not at the moment. Just to get this base started up. And then down here it becomes more exact. Alright. Same over here. Now this one you could even take this and pull some sharp little hairs. Because we're going to mist over that with a brown anyways. Okay, same going this way. I'm letting this scratch down. Alright, let's dust that off a little. Alright, and down in here, I can pull some of these. You know, really detailing with this little thing. It's quite the little tool here. See how that just pulled that into there? Yeah. Cuts right down into that surface pretty nicely. I'm using this sparingly. I don't I don't know about you guys, but I really kind of hate texting. Am I too old? Too old school? It's annoying. Alright. Really defining this. And this is part of what I was talking about, defining the fur. Real sharp little textures, and gotta be careful there. And especially in this eye area. I'm going to back out a little bit so you can see better where I'm at. Okay, that's a little better. All right, and I'm just going real lightly in here, the direction. And we can pull. And then under here, this kind of comes there. And we got just little tiny hairs. Under here that are coming up above this his eye. Remember, it begins to turn onto the nose. Every time I paint, everybody's got to suddenly start messaging me. It's my wife. I've got my father-in-law sick, and she's concerned about him and dealing with some health issues for him. See, in here, I didn't finish it the other day. I stopped in between. Now, and I'm going to move that up so that I can work a little in here in this area. Hopefully it's still somewhat in focus. I'm using the large fiberglass scratch brush because, like I said, this is bigger, more out of focus, so I don't need it sharp little lines up in there. And this is how I define the fur, really getting into it. I had already put the orange working in there and a little over here so I could get a real feeling of the balance of color and fur. Now I can use it flat to get multiple okay, because in here that's a little cleaner and whiter right there, and same with here. It's a little whiter markings. Plus you've got some spots where the fur is more clumped together. I'm always pulling in the direction that the fur's growing. Now on this area, it's kind of doing, it's just starting to do that bend up onto there. And down here, it's beginning to turn over onto the nose. I could do this with the other white one too, it's just I got this one in my hand. Alright. And as it gets further down this nose, and the more sporadic you make it, the fluffier you make them look. But this tiger, the fur is not as random going everywhere. He's quite layered a bit more perfectly. Now this in here, this fur that I'm scratching in right now it's white. And I don't want it white. I'm going to go over with a tan to blend into this orange. And also on this part of his forehead, the fur is not as long as over here. So I'm using shorter little scratch marks. But you can see that's getting a lot fuller looking. I hope it's coming through on the camera. I can't really tell, but it's becoming a lot fuller looking now. I've already done this once and then sprayed over again with orange. Now I've gone back in again and I'm redoing new scratch marks. Not directly on top of what I already scratched, but new ones. Over here. I gotta darken those up to blend in more with these. As I'm pulling the paint I gotta pull this way on these. And then on this side, pull out. So you're working from the middle out, both directions. And then the fur is going up and turning. So you gotta go follow the same pattern that you just scratched. This is up and turning. If you don't do this and you don't follow that pattern, it's not going to match, it's not going to blend, it's going to look out of place. It's just going to look like you painted a big black splotch. And again, pulling down this way, and then up this way. I don't want it all black either. I'm going to go in with some browns. And we got some little marks up here. And then pull some down on the bottom side just to blend in. Right? And then same in here. Okay. These are tiny little spots in here, so. And off of there. And then there's a little one off of here. Right. In here, we got a little more shadow. Now, I'm going to spray out this black, or not black, but Payne's Gray. There's only a tiny, tiny bit left. Being I'm going from a darker color back to a lighter color, I'm going to give a rinse. Grab another Q-tip. Okay. Clean this cup out a little bit. Then I'm going in with a Q-tip and just some water. Cleaning the cup out. Dirty. Now, I don't want to run all that because there might be some solid pieces floating around in there from washing it off the side. But once you got a nice clean cup and it's just water floating in there, water don't float, spray that clear water through. Now you're spray through once more. Then we're good to go on to the next color. Okay, I'm going to go to a tan color, which is going to be mixing up my water, my transparent base. And I'm doing 4 drops of water, 4 drops of transparent base. Now I'm going to add my color, which on this, like I said, it's going to be more of a tan color. So I'm going to do my, oops, I'm going to open my drawer a little more. I'm going to do some brown ochre. I'm going to do 3 drops of brown ochre. And then I'm going to use let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops of golden ochre, which when it's sprayed through the brush it looks a nice yellow, a mellow yellow. And I'm going to do just one drop of orange. Maybe 2. I'll do 2 instead. I don't want to go too orange because I'm not painting the orange part, but there is a little orange reflecting in there. And this is mainly just a mist. Yeah, that's a good color. That'll go nice in there. Once I mist it over there, the yellow will come out and a little bit of orange. Okay. Spray this through. Make sure on my little piece of paper here what my color is coming through. That looks good. Alright. Now I'm going to mist over this middle area to knock back those whites pieces of fur because they're not white. Alright. And it's darkening the orange a little bit because it's layering it with the transparent. Now, I only did this side, so that's all I'm working on right now. Okay. And I'm not doing dagger strokes with this. I'm misting the areas I want just knocked back. Alright. That's a little bit, see, that's that side. So this side has a little more of this orange. Alright. And then this up here, we've got this orange tan color working this area all the way up. We can be, you know, pretty good paint flow on that. And over here, it comes around on this, and we got this tannish orange color. And this is why I wasn't worried about the white, such as drastic white on top of that yet. Alright. Got that misted over. Now I'm going to come back in with my little tighter brush. I want to put on my glove this time because I'm going to have my hand resting up there quite a bit. Okay. I'm going to scratch back into all that I just misted over. So now I've got 3 layers of color going on. This is longer fur up here, so I can take nice long strokes, and I'm kind of going a little bit here and there going off. Sometimes I forget to do up into this part. I'm holding the bottom of the board with my fingertips so it doesn't go moving on me. every time you go over with that base color on top of this, it's going to darken the under layer that you left to paint, and where you scrape off, that's going to be lighter. Now, start to pay attention too. Some of these, you don't want to take it all off. What's the sense in painting it on and then taking it all back off? Okay. A lot of people like to stick with monochrome paintings, and I do love a good monochrome, a well done monochrome painting. But once you get the knack of using colors, it's not really that much more difficult. You're just layering your colors rather than one value. And I find actually when you do a monochrome sometimes, you can end up overshooting your value, and your painting can become quite dark too fast on you. So you got to be pretty cautious when you're doing monochrome, truthfully. You start real subtle and build those layers slow with a monochrome. Okay. You see how that fur is really now coming to life all in here, because you got a little more contrast in your value. Your hue is there, but your value is changing. Okay, looking really nice. Now I don't want to use that real fine brush now. I got enough little tiny hairs. Now we're doing clumps of hair, just like doing hairs on the head in a portrait. Your hair flows in clumps. So on this tiger, unless you're right up on that tiger and seeing those individual little hairs, you don't need them. Not all the time. You got so now, like, that's why I'm using this brush rather than that little a knife on this painting. I mean, I could sit here and keep scratching and scratching with a tiny knife blade, but I mean, it can be done. It's just, you gotta be real controlled. I mean, it would be like this. You'd just be sitting there for an hour, just doing a little, I need a new knife blade in here. This is not sharp enough. Yeah, it's not even catching that board. So you could use this one for this if you wanted to sit there, and it's just as good as that knife blade. Actually, it's better because the knife blade's dull. But you could sit here and do this, you know, building that almost like you're doing an actual scratch board, and do each individual little hair and then group them together into making those clumps. But, you know, there's no need to do that intricately right here. I mean, that would be more, for me, a finishing touch. So, now we're going to go back with our color. I'm going to put this back onto it. Trying to make sure I'm not scratching that paint off. All right. Go back to my color. Now I'm going to be a little tighter because I want to leave some of that whiter, and I'm going to go in between some of these, following the fur direction. Okay. Now up in this spot, this is a little more orange up in here. I didn't do enough up in here. I'm going to have to redo that area. And these aren't so white. These are getting these layers in here. And down here, and this is where your painting's gonna really jump, because if you go in here, these in here are actually orange on this brow. If you take the time to do these little tiny details and pay attention to where there's that little splash of color in this spot or that spot, and knocking this back, that's when your painting's really going to come to life for the depth of field and details. I mean, it's really going to pop for you. You know what we can do? I think in this eye, need a little more orange around that eye, and the same with the other eye over here. There's a little more orange reflecting in that eye. I've got to go back into the eye later anyways and reinforce these dark areas, because they've gotten a little bit of this clay fluffing down on it, or misting down, whatever you want to call it, falling on it and messing with the black. And once you get so much layered on there, it begins to get a little tacky. So you gotta let it dry for a while and go back in and clean it up a little. Alright, now I got that. Let's hit one more time in a few spots, especially over these larger spots that I painted. I don't want it like that. I'm just lightly scratching over these in the direction that the fur is growing, keeping it a little bit messy looking. You had a bad hair day, I guess. Alright, and under here, we can clean these up a little bit. And this comes okay. That looks good to me. I got little tiny marks in there. I'm just looking at my reference, seeing where I got to touch up and get the fur a little more accurate looking. But this is how you get that really tight, realistic fur. Take the time to do that. I gotta. Okay. Now down below. you got layers of color. You got whites, you got oranges, and I'm going to be putting the brown in next. And I'll clean this up a little more orange. Truthfully, a little more like that in that spot. Brush down on that. This comes in a little further. I got the black pulled out too far. So we can just knock that back in. And then we can come back on top of it. Put in some little marks like that. Beauty, 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 beautiful. Glory, glory, glorious. You are. Sorry, that's the song we sing in church service. Speaking about the Lord, how beautiful and glorious He is. What marvelous things He's done in our lives as we grow in our faith. Alright, now I'm going to take the same orange color I got, and I'm going to add in some little sepia smoke and some burnt umber. Now, let's spray out some of it so we don't have as much. I'm not going to thin this down as much. I want some coverage. Take out quite a bit of that orange. Yeah, hey, quite a bit of it in there. If I wasn't doing the painting demo, I would continue around with this orange. I'm going to add 3 drops of the water. And I'm not going to do any more transparent base to this for right now. I don't think I'm going to need it. But I'm going to do a couple drops of sepia. I'm going to add 3 drops of sepia. I emptied most of that orange out. I'm going to do 3 drops of sepia and I don't want it real dark, but 4 drops of this brown. Let's see where I'm at in color. Give this a mix. That's burnt umber for the brown. And mixing it into this orange, it's going to brighten up a little bit. It's not going to be as dark. That's why I added that sepia smoke in there. This is just a tint. Some of these shadowy areas. Okay. Spray that through till I get the brown color coming out of it and not just the orange that was in the head. And there we go. See the brown compared to the orange. See? And we're going to just take, and we're going to go in, and we're going to just little tiny, tiny marks in here where it's shadowing. To really get this fur defined. Paying attention, really tight attention to detail in our reference. The orange will blend and the brown will blend really nicely together. Makes for a nice shadow area. Just to really pick out that detail in the fur. And then up on this area, we can carry the markings and create that shadow. There's a lot of shadow in here. You don't want to, you're not painting a big solid line on top of the white or anything. You're kind of going in between spots of the white and shadowing the undersides of that. Up here we can be a little bit looser. Like I said, the fur's getting longer, plus it's getting a little more out of focus. Really building that depth in that fur. Now you could say, why didn't you paint dark and then scratch it all in and then go back light? Don't know. It's just not the way I've ever worked. I've found that, to me, if I go in with the dark first and then scratch back into it, I'm doing a lot more scratching and damage to the clay surface or my whatever surface I'm really working on. So I find it easier, I think, to work from light to dark in this aspect. Okay. Rather than dark to light. Dark to light's harder to cover up a mistake. So light to dark, you can always keep going darker until your value is set to a full saturation of color. Where if you start out dark, it's very hard to reverse that. Same with doing portraits. If you start out with the mid-tone, work in your highlights and then put in your dark values after, it's a lot easier to work that direction. It's easier to make things darker than it is to make things lighter. Especially if you're going to end up having to put in some whites on there. You got to deal with color shift. And that's tough. Color shift can be tough to deal with for a lot of people. Knowing what color to come over the top of, if it shifts green, to go over with orange to counterbalance that shift, or well, that's the easiest one to describe. When you're using complementary colors, you're not getting that. Reason why you get a color shift to green with white, because in white is blue, and if you've got a yellow underneath, you're going to put that white with the tint of blue in it, and you'll get a green shift on it. So it's very hard to correct and keep everything balanced. I'm paying attention to the direction of this fur. Right now I'm putting in the details of some of these markings, carrying it up into the lighter fur areas and down below. And then I'll come back with gray later and re-emphasize some of these areas. Yeah, if I were to try to highlight with white in this, all this orange in that, this painting would go so green. I mean, it would be horrendous because of the yellow and the orange, that mix in here. And this is what I was talking about defining. I don't know if I can, I don't know how focused it's going to be. Let me move in here. Let me switch it around so you can see where what I'm doing in here. I'm hoping it stays in focus. Knocking into everything. Alright, let's move this camera angle over. And I don't know if I got to adjust this or not. Freaking feeling like I'm half blind. I can't tell. Here I go, put my fat face in the way. Alright, ooh, I got zapped. Let's see, now that's out of focus. Let's try to get this in focus for you guys. I'm having to use manual focus here. Yeah. No, that's going too far the other way. Investment in a better camera would be nice. I just don't get the money. Yep, right there's about where it's going to be. You're wiggling. Getting impatient yet? Ha! Too bad. Deal with it. Well, I can't not tell. Alright, that's going too far out of focus. You say put it on autofocus. If I put it on autofocus, what'll happen is when my hand gets in front of the painting, it will focus on me. That's about as clear as I can get that with this camera. I wish I had a better camera to do this with. A 4K camera or something with better focusing abilities. Alright. I'm going to come in here. As you can see, I've got my white and my orange areas all in here. Okay? And what I'm doing is I'm coming real small with this brown mix. And I'm just doing little shadow spots. Tiny, tiny little dagger strokes. Paying attention to the shadowing on the tiger. I mean tiny. And it's just to put a little shadows. I can run a few lines longer if it's running longer. Because in the layers, the fur sitting above is going to cast a shadow on the underside. And this is what I call defining the fur. You're not covering up the white and trying to get rid of it. You're just taking little tiny spots and putting that shadow back into it. Alright. And let's see, that marking goes there. I've got discrepancy here. Here's this mark, that's that marking. Then this, okay. This marking's right here. So I gotta go gray that one out a lot. And then we've got this marking. Alright. And then I'll come back, like I said, I'll come back with my Payne's Gray and darken that. Alright, and then we'll come back in here and just do a little shadowing text to define that. On the nose, the bridge of the nose, well, you can't see where I'm working at the moment, but in here the fur is mostly turning up and still sticking out at you a little bit. But okay. I'll zoom out a little bit for you. Oops. At least there you can see it's a little clear zooming out there. But getting all this little tiny details, shadows underneath the fur from the layers of fur. Alright, let's give this a clean the tip a little bit just to make sure it was still spraying. I just want to make sure it's clear to make it easier. I don't want to have to be pulling back too far on that. And it's just short, tiny dagger strokes. Getting the pattern of the fur, just shadowing it. And you could send yourself crazy doing all these, but in this area it's shadowy because it's curving underneath that eyebrow. So let's give a little shadow under there. Same with down here. We can mist it. And then up in here. Being this is transparent, you can mist over it and it'll just deepen that orange. And then you can also hit it with a little bit of violet, and that will, well, on this, no, I wouldn't do that. On the browner areas of it, you could do that. Like in here, you could hit it with a little violet, and just a little, not a lot, and that would just make it so much, the fur so much richer. Okay. And what we can do is we can come back with our soft eraser and just lighten a little bit. We're not scratching away, we're just lightening it. Just in a little here and there. Just to pick up that texture. That's a nice thing on this clayboard. You can do this. You can really lighten and soften areas. All right, and then I'm going to take my favorite Euro tool. Just gonna touch a couple of the spots that are really bright, a lot brighter. Now obviously you don't want to go onto the brown too much, because that will not look right. The brown is for shadows. If you're putting white lights right on top of the shadow, it's not going to look right. Okay. And what you could do after this, putting in these little white, you could take and put yellow back into the brush and just mist a little bit of yellow on top of these white marks that you just put in. That way they don't look so standoutish and foreign, I guess would be a good way to describe it. It just looks foreign to that spot on the, it just doesn't go. It's not copacetic in there. There's a word, copacetic. Just doesn't flow. It doesn't match. It'll knock what I call knocking it back to blend in better. But as you can see, that's how I'm building the fur on this tiger, and I'm probably gonna leave it at this for this video. But it gives you a good sense of what I'm doing and how I'm working through this whole painting on this tiger. Let's see, and then we can because this is a shadowy area right here where the, like that, yeah, and then same in here. That little area there, and then once again around this spot. Okay. Well, I hope you're enjoying this and can use some of these techniques I'm showing you in developing your own painting style and techniques, using tools and whatever you have to create your painting. I know a lot of people love to, and I used to be the same way. It used to be a passion of mine to be able to create everything just with the airbrush. And now I've come around full circle now, and I'm like feeling a lot more like whatever tool I need to use to achieve that texture or that to represent what I'm looking at, whatever tool it takes, use it. Use it to your advantage. There's more tools than just the airbrush. I mean, if you want to use a colored pencil, so long as it blends in with your design, your picture, and you know, it looks nice in the final product, use a colored pencil. If scratching technique, scratch. You got an itch? Scratch. Alright, well, now you got a good gist of how I'm creating this fur texture. And I hope you enjoyed this little instruction video, how to detail that fur and get it really, really realistic looking. I see one more spot I want to do up before I go. It's under here. and it just getting this dark in here. And don't worry if you feel it's going too dark on you. It most likely is not at this point. And because once you start putting in the real dark black part of the markings, this will suddenly look lighter because of the contrast in value. You'll suddenly realize, hey, that's not as dark as it was. Okay. Alright. I'm going to keep working on this. You guys start your own paintings up. If you got a question, shoot me a question if you like. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. More the merrier. I enjoy seeing all you guys joining in, and hopefully I can continue to do this without having to charge. God will bless, God will provide. He always does. Praise the Lord. Okay, God bless. Enjoy. Get your own paintings going there, and use some of these techniques I'm giving you. This is Fred Wagner, Papa's Painting Tips. Have a nice day. Enjoy yourself. And keep on painting.